Welcome back, everyone. So in the last video we got this button clicker set up, and we showed the individual adding of event listeners, which we can obviously tell won't be ideal for a bunch of buttons. It's repeating code and it's not the best. So if we try this a different way, so let's do it like this. We're going to do const buttons query selector all button. So we know query selector can get a single thing. Query selector all allows us to grab multiple elements. Awesome. So if we console log buttons, we can see here that we get an array of all the buttons. And now I can actually, we don't need this ID button here anymore. So what we could do is we could loop through those buttons, right? Let I equals 0 and I is less than buttons.length I plus plus. And for each button, so buttons bracket I dot add event listener, we do the click and the function e like we had before, const num equals e.target.dataset .num, forgot that piece. And then we could console log num. And so if we refresh this, this will now work for every one of the buttons. So you might think, okay, Michael, well, this seems like a very solid solution. Not so fast. So there are some cons to this. First con is that we have to add 5 event listeners. And every event listener you add is just a little bit of a performance on the browser. And if you can limit the number of event listeners, that's great. The bigger reason is that this will work for every button that already existed on the page. But what if we dynamically add a button? So I'm going to grab that buttons container. And we're going to grab hashtag buttons. I put this buttons ID on this tag. And if I do buttons container dot append, we're going to do const new button equals document dot create element button, new button dot text content is going to equal log 6, new button dot dataset dot num is going to be set to 6, and then we're going to append this new button. Cool. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But 6 doesn't work. So when you dynamically add buttons, like we just did, since it didn't exist on the page, it never got caught up by this for loop to grab it. And so what you could do is, after you dynamically create a button, you could add a new event listener on that button and do this, but this is, again, not very scalable. We have to do that for every single button. We're creating a whole bunch of event listeners, like I said, which we already said was not very good. And this makes for a more complex situation than it needs to be. So instead, the approach that we'll do that makes it event delegation is we're going to add an event listener on this outer div, okay? And then we're going to have it do stuff when we hit one of these buttons inside here. So in the next video, I'll show you the actual implementation of event delegation in JavaScript to accomplish this. So I'll see you in the next video.